We are 4 races into the championship, and one driver has every pole position, every fastest lap, and every race win. Zolder holds a comfortable 40-point lead ahead of the nearest competitor, Verstappen. Will this gap continue to grow, or will Verstappen be able to bite back today at Zolder? Hello everyone, welcome back to the RCI GT4 Championship Season 6. My name is Tim Beck, and I'm joined today in the commentary booth by Jesse Lee and Christian Stricker on broadcast. Jesse, do you think Zolder can keep up this win streak?
Well, if it was ever going to be broken up, today would be the day. This is a tricky track, Zolder, and it's so unlike any other track in ACC. So if it was ever going to happen, I would argue today could be that day. That being said, though, considering he came in to practice, ran a couple of laps, and within a couple of laps was already quickest in the session, it still seems a little bit unlikely to me.
He is looking very strong. Of course, it's a slightly different story for the AM split at the moment. Currently, Ellis holds a 10-point lead with 90 points, but Suminian and Olsen are just behind. They're tied on 80 points, so a lot closer down in the lower split currently. But before we get into the full standings, we will be talking about the format of today. We're going to start with a 10-minute qualifying, which will then be followed by not one but two 20-minute races. Of course, the qualifying position does determine where you will start for both races. So with that, Jesse Lee, my one question for you is, how much do you think qualifying is going to matter here at Zolder today?
Oh, it's going to be ultimately important. There's a lot of places we go where qualifying is very important. There's some places we go that it really doesn't matter too much, but when you marry a 20-minute race up with a track that its only passing opportunities are into a chicane where you're more likely to get into trouble than out of it, I would say it's ultimately important. More so than any other track, even Laguna Seca, I think qualifying ranks supreme here. The person that starts first has the best chance of winning this race today, and both races for that matter.
I have to agree with them. With 3-4 chicanes, however many you want to call it, there's only really one of those as well where you can do overtaking. Of course, the first two chicanes you do not want to be going into side by side with someone, as that will spell trouble very, very quickly. We were here a couple of seasons ago, and the amount of times we saw cars just completely lose it on the first few chicanes was incredible. So hopefully for a lot of the guys returning today, they'll be looking to just be a bit more consistent throughout Zolder, because I'm thinking here consistency is going to be key throughout both races.
Well, it's going to be very interesting to see if anybody can wrestle the pole away from towards Zidlow, who has been absolutely dominant in the first two rounds. Of course, we have 2 races per round, 4 races in the books, and perfect through those first 2 rounds. It is the tallest task I think he will have all season long, because as easy as it is to win this race from pole position, easy a relative term, of course, it's also very easy to get turned around. You're likely going to see that a lot here today. Could be one of the messier races all season long, case and point.
Yeah, someone's having a bit of trouble here as they look like they're just trying to find a clear space on the track to slot back into. But we were thinking back to Misano. I mean, we saw Zolder and Verstappen haven't, well, a bit of an argument really on the first lap. They had a clash which sent both of them down to the impact. If that happens here today, they're not going to have as easy of a time coming back up as they did at Misano, because at Misano you've got 4 long straights with a lot of potential to overtake and get back into the lead from, which really helped Zidlow when he was climbing back up. But I mean, here at Zolder, it's not looking, as we said, it's not looking like a track where you're going to be gaining a lot of positions. So if there's anywhere to try and stay out of trouble, it is here today. And I genuinely think if we see someone get into a bit of a mix-up on that first corner, that could change the entire outcome of the race ahead.
Yeah, it sure could. And I will say, with all the posturing and sort of expectation that I've laid out in the pre-qualifying part, as the seconds tick off and practice ends, before we far to qualifying, I will say this. I have seen cars from nearly outside the top 10 win this race simply by not being involved in accidents here. Like I said, this is going to be a wild ride for the first lap or two. And of course, you're never really going to get away from people you're racing today because of the short format. 2 20-minute races. Qualifying sets the grid for both races. 1Q, 2 race. It could not be more action-packed than this. This is the GT equivalent of going to a short track in oval racing.
Yeah, I think qualifying is going to be possibly, well, I think this is possibly the most important qualifying of the season that we're going to see. It's all going to come down to who can get the best lap in those 10 minutes. And, well, with 40-odd cars on the track that we currently have, it is going to be very, very hard to get your perfect lap in. So you need to make sure you find a room on your out lap. You need to make sure that you're comfortable in the car, and you just got to go for it. And I think, realistically speaking, it's going to be those early laps which see the faster times, because towards the end of the session, you're just going to be fighting for position again. And there are rules now, Jesse, that say you can't just back up on the final corner and go, especially if a car is on their fast lap behind you.
It's a solid point. There are a lot of cars here, 2 different classes, the Pro and the AM class, but I can promise you a lot of those drivers are not AMs in the AM class. So basically you have the upper and the lower class essentially here in this race. It's all based on relative pace, of course, and we'll see how that shakes out. Don't think too much of it. If a lower class driver does outclass the higher class or get inside the top 5 even, it's very possible indeed. And like Tim said, Sector 3, you cannot slow down to get an advantage. You have to do that somewhere else out on the race course. I think a lot of the drivers are adjusting that new rule. Last week in the Friday race, I saw a driver slow down in Sector 1, knowing they could legally do that. I thought that was very humorous indeed. Racing drivers, racing teams, very ingenious, always looking for some way to get around the rule. And I absolutely love it. Absolutely legal. Nothing. Talked with the stewards afterwards. They said, nope, completely fine. They only have the no slow down in Sector 3 rule, simply to keep log jams from happening. If they want to slow down somewhere else, that's on them. As long as they do it safely, it is all good. All the cars released out to qualify here at Zolder. 8 a.m. Weather could not be more perfect. 22 degrees C, track and ambient, and not a cloud in the sky. And maybe even more important than all of that, 100% sunny, optimum racetrack, the best grip you're probably going to get around here. Matthew Kingston Lee, the best name in sim racing, beat everybody out of pit lane this time.
They sure did, and they're just coming across the start-finish line now, so this will be the first qualifying lap set. We will see how Kingston Lee manages to get on. It looks like a nice first corner, albeit the exit looked a tiny bit slow there to me, Jesse Lee, but there is still plenty of track left to set a good time, and because they were the first one out of the pit lane, they have the biggest gap ahead of them to decide exactly what they want to do with it. So realistically, if this isn't the perfect lap, all Matthew has to do here is keep it on the track and make sure he can keep that gap ahead of him. But so far this lap has looked incredibly textbook, and to be honest, I can't fault it too much. We are coming up to the tricky section now though, with the 2 harder chicanes in, where you just have to, as you can see he's done there, you have to go straight over the top of both curbs and just hope that the car doesn't get too unsettled and that you can continue to push forward as quickly as possible. But with that first chicane down, he has made it look absolutely easy, and the same with the second one as well. You can see just how much of the curb they cut there as well. Almost the entire car was off the track there, but I believe I've just heard from Christian that lap was in fact invalidated. So maybe don't cut off quite that much when you go around the next time.
Well, that is something else we haven't quite touched on yet, but now is a better time than any. The track limits around here, the AC 1.81 update adjusted some track limits, but still very tight confines here at Zolder. And the name of the game, folks, that may be uninitiated, is to try and cut as much of the chicane as you possibly can to get the straightest run. And if you stray too far, you will invalidate. Also, running off the racetrack in some places will invalidate. Quite puzzling indeed. But just a correction, that was not an invalidation for Matthew Kingston Lee. He fooled us on the timing sheet, but sets a decent lap. But that has been beat by Klosowski, Boardman, and now Atterberg Ertan to the point. The 141 McLaren set a 136.760. And if there's one thing that I have just noticed, just about half this field invalidated their very first lap. That's incredible.
That is a lot of people to invalidate a lap, but there is still time left in the qualifying, albeit not a lot. We are almost already halfway through, and that just goes to show how quickly you need to make sure you get those laps in, because for the people that haven't yet set a lap, they have nothing to fall back onto here if they can't get their perfect lap in, and that's going to cause a lot of problems later on down the line. I think one thing that's super important is that you just make sure that first lap you do gets in and isn't invalidated, because then you have something to fall back on, and then you've got a bit more chance to push and see where you can find more limits on the corners. But with no time to fall back on here, I think a lot of these guys are going to struggle, especially with now the added pressure of only 5 minutes left in qualifying. Here is towards it though. They will currently be looking for their 5th pole position. Of course, it will be their 3rd pole position in terms of the rounds. We have 2 races per round here, but towards Idlo will be looking for a very good time here. And currently, Jesse, he's one of the ones that hasn't set a time yet.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about too, Tim, was how interesting what towards Zidlow did. Of course, knowing the rules, that was in Sector 1, Sector 2 right there, was just really slow trying to find a gap. I think towards Zidlow invalidated his first lap and has now found himself in traffic there. Didn't want to be in traffic. You're probably not going to set a really quick lap when you're right next to somebody, even if you're not really up against them. It's psychological in a way, knowing that you're catching somebody. So towards Zidlow just slowed down at the end of Sector 1 there, just let everybody go, looking for a little piece of real estate. We've got 34 cars in the field today, and this isn't exactly the biggest or the longest racetrack in the world. Space is absolutely at a premium. You look at the track map on the right-hand side of your screen, it details the problem. There's very few open spots that don't currently have a car in it. But Adalbert Gertan's still the quickest. He reset quick lap again, a 136.287. This man, Christoph Verstappen, the NSN Racing Porsche, is second place by 0.2 of a second. And again, right up behind another car. That'll do him no good.
That absolutely won't do them any good. As you see, they actually backed out there to just try and find some space. But here's Kingston Lee. They're the person we were watching at the beginning of this qualifying, and we're going to see now if this time that they have massively improved on is going to put them a bit further up the board. They're currently in 6th and they're crossing the line, and it's put them all the way up into 4th. So a good improvement there from Kingston Lee. But if they want to put themselves in that pole position, they're just going to need that 4 more attempts. Currently though, Jesse, I must say, this is a very weird order for qualifying. I'm looking at this person down here towards Idlo, who I would have expected to have at least 1 lap set by now. Of course, we've seen them just struggling to find the space, and they've only got 3 minutes left to do it, which basically means if this isn't their fast lap, they're going to have a 1-shot quali lap, and I'm not 100% sure if that's going to be enough. It looks like as well they're just preparing for a lap here and they're backing up, so they might get 1 shot, they might get 2. Either way, a lot of pressure is on towards Zidlow right now if they want to get into that pole position.
Towards Zidlow has a huge lead in this championship, but folks, I'm telling you, it could evaporate in one race if he doesn't get inside the top 15 and score points. And we're not grouping them up by what category they are in. If Olsen, for instance, qualifies 9th, he gets to start 9th. He doesn't get pushed back in front of his field. That is where you start. And for Zidlow, who has yet to get a quick lap in, it could be an absolute disastrous day. Racing in the in the pack, of course, and on top of that, not getting points potentially for getting inside the top 15. 20-minute race, not an hour race. It's going to be close. Speaking of close, Artur here, Kamirski trying to take the pole position. This could be a quick lap for the Carbon Sim Sport driver, and is a 136.172, the quickest we've seen all day. And the number 15 Carbon Sim Sport BMW takes the provisional pole from Adalbert Gertan by a 10th here. Getting real spicy.
And that is Kamirski showing us exactly what that BMW can do. Will Ertan have enough power to just take back that pole position that has just been taken from them? Well, currently, Jesse, they are 3 tenths up on their previous lap time, so we'll see if that is going to be enough. If they can hold on to it, that will just be enough to put them onto that pole position. Whether anyone else is going to come into the mix, I don't know. Here's towards it though. I believe this is them trying to set a fast lap, but that is a massive group of cars. ahead of them. So if any one of those cars has a slight incident, that could be enough to just back towards Zillow up too much. And you can see the car's getting slightly unsettled through there. Not enough to slow him down massively, but where is he supposed to go, Jesse? There's no room on the track anymore.
Oh, well, at least he's got a lap in, and he was fifth for a second. De Havilland absolutely knocked him out of the top 5, but a sigh of relief for Tord Zidlo. He gets another lap as well. Adalbert Ertan, meanwhile, is fighting Kazimierski for the pole position. Will Ertan have a rebuttal? I reckon he will. Adalbert, where does he go? Back to the pole, a 1:35.960. Setting fast lap again, 2/10 quicker than Kazimierski and 3/10 quicker than his previous lap. I'm not sure this is over. Can Kazimierski get a better lap in there? What will Tord Zidlo do, who's down in 6th place? He needs 6/10 to have a realistic shot at pole. Klosowski here coming to the line, looking like a pickup for Adrian, another Carbon Sim Sport driver indeed, a 1:36.462, good enough for third, and he calls it quits. He could have ran another lap there. Oh no! Tord Zidlo ran off the track trying to get around the slower cars, and that's going to be all she wrote for your championship leader.
Jesse, currently we have Ertan on pole, Kazimierski in second, and Klosowski in third. These are 3 drivers who I would say have been massively underseen so far in this championship. All 3 have done so well, but they've just been overshadowed that little bit by Tord Zidlo and Verstappen at the front. But this looks like it is going to be their chance to show exactly what they can do. Ertan looks like they're going to have pole here. We have a couple more cars coming over the line, one of which is Daly, who has improved on their time. Let's see if it will be enough to put them any further up. I'm looking at about 5th here for them currently. As long as they can hold the speed they've held through this corner, I think they're just going to slot themselves into 6th now, Jesse. We'll see where they manage to place themselves, and that's going to be 7th for Jordan Daly. So not quite the improvement they were looking for there, but an improvement nonetheless. And I've got to say, Jesse, Ertan bringing home pole, Kazimierski in second, and Klosowski in third is looking like a very interesting race. Of course, Borodai as well has put themselves in 4th. Borodai is someone who has shown up in previous championships and done so well. Going to the low split, Olsen is currently on pole position. Gleason back into the fight is in 2nd position as well. And then Ricciardo is down in 3rd at the moment. They will be... Oh no, Ellis has just split a lap, and Ellis has put themselves in 3rd for the AM split, Jesse.
Absolutely excellent stuff there. Qualifying confirmed. Kingston Lee, the last driver across the line, and we'll confirm the results of qualifying for you here. Ertan on pole. Kazimierski will start outside of him. Klosowski in the 2nd row with Borodai, Verstappen, de Havilland. Jordan Daly up into 7th place with Tord Zidlo, and then Boardman and Kingston Lee, your top 10. Olsen, Gleason, the top 2 in AM, and those 2 are very close, and we'll start side by side. Excellent stuff, but for the time being, we got to tell you how we got here, Tim Peck.
Well, here is how we have got here so far. As mentioned a lot already, Tord Zidlo is currently 40 points ahead of Verstappen. Tord Zidlo with 128 points, the maximum amount of points he can have so far. Verstappen has 88 points, they're currently in 2nd. Klosowski is in 3rd place. They're rounding out the podium with 70 points. Kazimierski holds 4th, just 5 points ahead of Jackson, who's in 5th. So a very close fight between 3rd and 5th, just 5 points splitting each of them up. Andy Boardman, he's currently placed in 6th place. Ertan's in 7th. Kingston Lee has had a couple of good races. That's put him up into 8th. Puert is in 9th. And then rounding out the top 10 is de Havilland in that Chevrolet. Billy Octane is currently in 11th position. They've got 32 points, just ahead of Pimlott and Vasiliev. They are tied with 30 points for 12th place currently. So both of them will be looking to one up the other today. Aaron Jackson, they're currently in 14th for 26 points, just ahead of Jordan Daly, who we've just seen cross the line. So Jordan's got a good chance here to just pull away from Aaron Jackson. And Miguel Martins, who's just behind him in 16th with 24 points. Tom Bryant's in 17th, Rob Franken's in 18th, Bautier is in 19th, and Phil Roberts will round out the top 20. Borodai is in 21st, Jan Yo is in 22nd, Theobald in 23rd, and Scott and Hull will round up the bottom of the pro split for now. Schaefer and Bozok have yet to get any points, and I believe yet to race.
Well, leading up the AM field, Jamie Ellis leads that by 10 points over Miska Suminen. Ellis is dominated, but Suminen fired a shot back with one win of his own. Frank Olsen is tied with Suminen for second place. Ricciardo with 76 over Simon Watton with 70, rounding out your top five. Yaroshenko in six with 48. 10 points behind him, Martin DeBont with 38. 1 point behind him and tied is Redford and Power. And 1 point behind those two tied is Olaf in 10th place. Do keep in mind, you got to be inside the top 15 to score points, and that's what's kept the championship real close. Speaking of, Joe Gleason and Mark Wingham tied on 36 apiece. Kaneko with 35, Damian Lowe on 31, and rounding out the top 15, Marshall with 28. Nate Norbury, I know that guy, with 27 points in 16th place. Ivan in 17th with 18. And Polanco and South sadly do not have points to this point.
Well, those were the standings that we just saw on the screen, and just in time to watch the beginning of the race, everyone is now starting out on their out lap just before we get to the race itself. Just to remind you what happened in qualifying, Ertan will be on pole position. They will be looking to do a huge race today. They are currently in the best place to start, as they've now got, well, 20 minutes to defend that position. Olsen for the AM split is in pole position there. Not got many cars between him and Gleason. Usually we see a bit of a barrier of the different split cars for that lower split, but not today. Olsen is going to have pressure from the get-go from Gleason behind, so they will have to make sure they get one brilliant start. But we're on our outlap, Jesse, and, well, without having Tord Zidlo or Verstappen on the front row, who do you think's got the odds for this race currently?
I have no idea right now, to be honest. Tord Zidlo is starting in 8th place. Surely Tord Zidlo is going to get positions and come up through the field a little bit, but I don't think they're going to get inside the top two unless something goes wrong, and it very well could. But for Ertan, I think this is pretty much in the bag if they can get out front cleanly. I don't think anybody else really has too much for them. Klazowski and Kazimirski set really competitive times, but Ertan just always seemed to have a rebuttal when somebody took that lap away. That is confidence that you cannot replicate and you cannot sleep on, really, out of the 141. And also I was told that Theobald and Tom Bryant tied for the fastest lap in a Ginetta in this race. And of course, because Theobald set the lap first, they get the position over Bryant. But of course, very close qualifying all up and down the field. A 10th would have gained you as many as 4 or 5 spots in some places. This race is going to be hectic. This is the one race I'm glad we don't have live stewards. It would be very interesting to see how the live stewards handled this, because I have a feeling we're about to see something we don't often see, and that is absolute chaos on a start. Every man for himself, every car for himself as well. I hope we don't see that, but I get this feeling we just might. Pay attention to the front. That's where it's going to start.
It certainly is. That first corner can be a bit of a hectic one, especially with it being one of the only opportunities to overtake. But if you're one of the people that wants to hold on to your position, which is pretty much everyone right now, you will be looking to just get the better head start on them, so that by the time you make it to the chicanes, which are particularly datey? That's not the right word there, Jesse. Particularly dangerous later on, you have a good enough lead that you won't be under immediate threat. But we are about to go across the start-finish line now. These cars may not look like they're accelerating, but they certainly are. This is the speed of the GT4 through the first corner, and it looks like Klazowski has had the start of their dreams. Actually, that might be Kazimirski, Jesse, has had the start of their dreams, going down the inside of both Ertan and Klazowski there. For the most part, the middle pack has held themselves together well as well. They're getting ever so close coming up into the second corner, but just managing to stay away from each other. And so far, this has been a fairly good start. Somehow, Olsen has picked himself up a drive-through. I believe that will be for jumping the start, because we do not have live stewarding. So Olsen is going to really feel that later on as well, because that will be taking them from pole all the way down to the bottom of their group. But I've got to say, for what was predicted to be a very, very rough start, Jesse.
We've not got there yet. Hold on, Tim. Hold on, Tim. We've not got there yet. Here we go down into the first chicane. This is very tight confines
Ooh!
indeed. Tom Bryant nearly gets taken off the racetrack, but saved there as Miguel Martins just gives him just enough room. And I will say it now, that was just about as clean as you could ever imagine it being. You know what we've seen in this series so far, or in any series where we've had these two short races like this, one race is usually clean, the other one everybody gets a bit desperate. But that was a brilliant start by Ayrton. It was an even more brilliant start by Kazimirski, who got up to second place and has gapped everybody behind him a little bit and is trying to run down Ataberg Ertan. It is very close stuff here, and in the hairpin, some very argy-bargy, dodge-em style driving. But beyond that, everybody gets away cleanly. No cars even backwards there. I'm going to say just about saved. And talk about Olsen for a second. He must have been out of position on the start because he got a drive-through penalty. That's the only thing I can think of. And that is going to hand the lead to Joe Gleason right there on the first lap. Joe Gleason knows how to win these races. He's won one of these races. Could he do it again today? That would be absolutely incredible. Nowhere near anybody else in his class. He's got pro drivers all around him. Joe Gleason looking for another win today.
Joe Gleason just needs to stay out of trouble for the next 20 minutes, which here at Zolder is easier said than done. Someone who's looking for trouble themselves, it seems, is Verstappen as they look towards the inside of Klazowski ahead, but will choose, I'd say, the smarter option of the two and back out just before the chicane so that both can go through safely. But I must say, Jesse, for an overtake on the chicane, that was very, very clean on the lap before from the two drivers that we watched do it. Here, though, you've got a couple of people showing us how not to do this, as one of them misses the corner, the other one then hits the chicane and shows us how the car can get unsettled. And I believe that was maybe Hull behind them, not having the time of their life right now on the chicane. But for the most part, as you said, this has been particularly safe compared to what we have usually seen here at Zolder. That being said, Jesse, there are 40 cars on this track right now, and there is not a huge gap between any of them. We're currently watching Boardman, who is now fighting to get back through Vasiliev. Vasiliev, who, I must say, almost collided with Boardman several times on lap one, has somehow made their way through here. So now it's Boardman's turn to see if that Alpine can push themselves back up into ninth place. Both have had a fairly good start to the race, but here is where it's currently racing right now. Kingston Lee, fallen down a couple of positions, is now fighting Jackson, going into the first corner neck and neck. Who is going to come out on top between the two? Well, it looks like Jackson is going to have the much better exit as they push Kingston Lee off the track to secure their 13th position there. Well, Jesse, a lot of close racing here, and so far, not a lot of trouble.
Not a whole lot of trouble. The drive-through served by Olsen there, and you're right to say that if you get out of line here, you're going to get shuffled back. If you get turned here, you're basically going to 33rd place. You're not going to get points in either category, no matter what category you're in. Pass there by Torzillo. That was going to be the next thing that I was going to mention, that Maurice Torzillo had not made any ground up in the first two laps, and I thought that was a bit strange. And now, all of a sudden, you see him gain one spot up to 7th place. That helps his cause. Remember, Torzillo has a massive, or as I would say, a mahoosive lead in the championship right now. And any position he gets helps pad the damage today. Meanwhile, up front, this is Klazowski looking back at Verstappen, the 8 and the 747 respectively. Both Porsches, de Havilland in the background of this fight. Verstappen looking very quick indeed, coming to the front here. I wouldn't have called this based on qualifying. I thought that this battle was literally going to be between the 141, the 15, and the 8, but Verstappen is not having any of that. The NS Racing Porsche is looking very racy indeed.
Well, you talked about how Torzillo wants to climb as many places as possible to defend their lead. This person here, Verstappen, wants to climb as many places as possible to get the points to chunk out of that lead. Verstappen here will be looking for a podium finish or possibly even higher, although they have managed... Oh, what's happened here, Jesse? Ellis seems to be sitting off the track. I think they must have had an instant. We're going to see if we can get a race replay here, and it looks like we're going to catch the end of it, but I believe they may have had contact with one of the blue and red cars there that seems to have been slowing down behind them, so it might have been a slight nudge. Odd place to have it, just coming out of that final corner and start-finish straight. That's not where I'd say we'd see an accident here, but Ellis has certainly had an uncomfortable time there as they managed to slot themselves back onto the track. But here is Verstappen looking to see if they can find their way through.
Oh, easy peasy.
I believe they've already done it, getting through that corner. This is going to be Verstappen finding that podium place that they were looking for. All will help to take the lead back from towards Zidlo in the championship. Can Verstappen now close that 3-second gap? Well, we'll have to find out, as now de Havilland is looking for their chance to fight up, and I believe they've just gone through 3 wide into that hairpin. Well, they touched a little bit, but that could have gone a lot worse, Jesse.
Yeah, I believe that was Daly. No, that was that Day. Was that? I don't know who that was. I don't know if that was Daly or towards Zidlo. It might have been towards Zidlo, who got a little handsy with Alexander Borodai there, up a spot as well. And Daly coming along for the ride up to 8th position now. Verstappen, by the way, going back to him for a moment, I said earlier that it would be hard to win from the field, but not impossible. Verstappen, for me, is the driver that could possibly get that done, coming from where he started all the way up into 3rd now with 14 minutes to go. If he has the grunt, I reckon that he could get that done. Meanwhile, Joe Gleason in the 2nd class here has driven away in front. Oh, and there's going to be contact here. Aaron Jackson makes contact with Yaroshenko, spinning Jackson to the inside. Seemed to hurt Yaroshenko as little as possible there, but heavy contact leads to a spin on the inside. It's so easy to spin yourself whenever you're on the inside trying to make a pass like that, and that is exactly what we saw there.
They took the risk and they had the punishment for taking it and not doing it correctly. Jackson's going to find himself off track currently, but coming back to the big battle, I'd say, for the front of the pack here, you've got towards Zidlo looking to navigate their way through the cars ahead. I believe they've got themselves up to 6th, which means currently they're just looking at Klazowski ahead of them. Now, Jesse, I believe these two are teammates. Do you think Klazowski will let him through? Maybe not, based on what we've just seen going to this hairpin. They almost make contact there as towards Zidlo looks very close to the number 8 Porsche ahead, and that has given Borodai now a chance to try and find their way up into the fight. And well, behind you can see Daly making a move on Vasiliev. Maybe the other way around. Vasiliev is looking for a move on the Mercedes ahead of them. I believe Daly's just managed to hold it together there, but that was ever so close from the cars behind. And I tell you what, Jesse, I can count about 10 cars in that shot alone. All of them are fighting for the same position currently as we watch towards Zidlo try and hold off Daly. That's not Daly, that's not towards Zidlo either. I think Kozlowski try and hold off towards Zidlo behind. I tell you what, if I was on their team right now, I'd be having a bit of a serious word about, okay, what are we doing here? Are we switching or are we just going to try and race? Because I don't want to have another close contact moment like they almost had on the hairpin there, Jesse.
Yeah, Klazowski has to be wondering what's happened to his race. He started up near the front, now finds themselves back to P6, but all that does is help towards Zidlo. Started 8th up to 5th, trending in the right direction. Meanwhile, Kazimirski has the Speed Shoes fastest lap of the race award in the 15 BMW, running in 2nd place. That's not good news for Ertan, but what is that even though Kazimirski has the quickest lap, he's not really gaining on Ertan. That's a 6/10 of a second lead that's been pretty constant since the drop of the green flag here today. So that's not the end of the world. What I'd be worried about is that car in 3rd place. The 747 Porsche has closed down 2.5 seconds nearly on Kazimirski for 2nd. And here's the good news. If you are Christoph Verstappen, if you catch 2nd place, you've caught 1st place.
That is good news to them indeed. Someone who's definitely got their fair share of good news right now is that orange-brown, I'm not sure what colour you want to call it, car that you see leading this back here. That is Gleason. They are currently in the lowest split, but that doesn't mean that they're not fighting the highest split. You can see them, there's currently an 8-car gap to crack behind them currently, so Gleason is looking very comfortable here. And well, with this train of cars behind them, do they think about maybe letting some of them through safely? Well, they don't have to worry anymore, as it looks like they're going to lose grip going through the first corner. A slight tap with one of the higher cars coming through, but not losing too much. Gleason is now going to have to fight a little bit to keep up the pace to stay ahead. Now losing the lead, and it looks like they've just been spun out, and that is a much bigger accident for them there. That is Scott, who comes through in the pink and blue car that will hit them at the end, which means that the 718 Porsche that initially they were holding off has now overtaken them. For Gleason, that was looking ever so good. And then within 2 corners, the entire lead they had on the car behind in their split has just disappeared and been taken from them. Gleeson, well, they've just not had a good start to the lap, have they, Jesse?
That was absolutely dire. This could be very close as well as Henry just about gets through there as Jackson tries to battle him. But for Joe Gleeson, all they had to do was keep it on the black stuff. It did not happen here. A crash into turn 1 and getting spun in turn 2 has put them back in 3rd place in the class. Cracknell leading in that class in the 718 Porsche. Yaroshenko up to 2nd in their Porsche has completely changed the lower class battle here, and Joe Gleeson will absolutely be furious, not only with himself, but everyone else indeed. It's so hard to process, and Gleeson now not on the podium anymore, and not even in the top 5 in that class. Ricciardo now in 3rd place in the lower class. Neil Pimlott defending, trying to keep Henry behind, and just about gets it done. Position stable for the moment for Neil Pimlott.
This fight is still going on, and it's a mixture of 2 different classes here as we watch Scott try and find their way through Jackson. It looks like they've gone for the switchback. They went for the outside, and they're now looking towards the inside, of course, outside again for the 2nd corner, but managing to hold it through is the Alpine, and it looks like they might just have an advantage on Jackson ahead here. They've still neck and neck as they come out of this really long corner, and it keeps seems going. This is the final part of it here, but Jackson is just going to have a bit of track position. They'll use it to push Scott back to the side, and for now Scott's attempts will be in vain. They will not be able to get up into 19th there, but it is not over yet, and I'm sure Scott will be looking to try and get that position again. I'd just like to say
I think he just crashed. I think he just crashed whenever we went away from him there.
I didn't see
pretty sure
that,
he hit the curb.
There was smoke back there.
And he's crashed.
Yeah, you can see him. He's going ever so slowly through these corners. There's another car facing the wrong way on the chicane.
That's
Someone's
Phil Roberts
gone off there.
Went off there as well.
Yeah, that was Phil Roberts on the side. Wow, I tell you what, not an ideal lap for this set of drivers. It looks like Scott is still struggling to just get through here safely. They are going to, I'm not sure if they're going to go to the pits or not. They're still going quite slow, but it looks like they're picking back up to pace now. We don't know how bad that crash was, but it could have just been a spin out. Either way, Scott went from fighting for the positions ahead to now having to just try and get back into the fight that they were originally in. And I tell you what, Jesse, every time I've opened my mouth so far, I have jinxed the driver. So I'm not 100% sure I should be here commentating today, because I'm just ruining the race for everyone I'm talking about.
Well, it is a gift and a curse that we have, and this was very interesting between these 2 drivers. Danielle Ricciardo here having contact with the, was that the 135 of Gleeson as well. Was that was very interesting. I'm not entirely sure what I just saw. I'm going to actually try to catch it back on repeat. See here. So Daniele Ricciardo here. And is that Joe Gleeson that he had contact with? I'm not sure. Yeah, he just ran him off the track. The 135 and the 931 is what we saw. And that's very interesting there. That seemed like there was intent behind that. I'm not sure what that was all about. But Conrad Jackson here racing Yaroshenko. Actually, no, that's not Yaroshenko. That's Neil Pimlott. What am I saying? There's so many cars everywhere. It's hard to keep up, people. But that is Neil Pimlott. Jackson has that spot, and that is putting Jackson into the pro points with that pass.
And Jackson is going to be very, very happy with how that has gone. Of course, they do now have to hold this position, and Pimlott certainly is not going to give up. And as we said, there's a big train behind, although it looks like they've had some contact behind as one of the cars makes contact with the other and then slides into the sticking out bit of wall on the side of the track there. So that is not what is going to, well, I believe that might have been the number 12 Porsche, just had a little accident back there, but we will be able to find out in a second here as Roberts goes to make a move on hole ahead and isn't quite able to do it, almost making huge contact with the 548. Managing to just about both cars stay on the track here, but that's not going to be it for Roberts. He is trying to show us what this Ginetta can do. Goes to the outside and then goes really fast around the outside of the 548. It looks like they've got this overtake done as they go to the inside of this long corner here, and as we know, that is exactly where you want to be for this corner. Roberts has shown us how to overtake on the track, where overtaking certainly is not easy. And I've got to say, Jesse, apart from that little first bit there where it looked like they were about to collide with each other, that was a good textbook move from Roberts.
Yeah, went around the outside in a Ginetta nonetheless. That's a bigger feat than it may appear just by viewing it. I wouldn't say a Ginetta would be the pick of the car to do that in, but Phil Roberts absolutely knowing the limits of the machine, going around the outside, getting that spot away. James de Havilland here continuing to work on Klosowski, who has free fall through this field just a little bit. 6th place currently, 7th place would be absolutely devastating for a driver that started on the front 2 rows. Meanwhile, towards Zidlow is up to 4th place. Verstappen is 1.8 seconds off of the lead right now, and they still stand. Ertan and Kazimierski, they're basically nose to tail here. Verstappen might have one shot here. Who was that? That was Klosowski, and it's gone from absolutely bad to worse to a full-on nightmare for Adrian Klosowski in the 8 Porsche, the Carbon Sim Sport driver who had everything going right in qualifying, has had a miserable race here. 10th place, still in the points. If you are looking for a silver lining, Tim Peck, what's going on in this race?
I don't know what's going on. How did Zidlow get to 4th place all of a sudden? I didn't see that happening. And it seems that, no! And now there's even more contact going into the first corner between the lowest split drivers. I believe that was Kraken Yaroshenko there who got knocked off the track. They're going to be saying goodbye to that podium position that they had and will now have to fight their way back through a very big group of drivers that they've just lost position to there. But, well, it's been absolute chaos so far, Jesse, and I'm not sure I've been keeping up with it fully. Zidlow has, of course, the fastest lap, but here is... I'm not sure who this is. I believe it's Daly, actually.
This is Daly and de Havilland, yeah.
This is Daly and de Havilland. Daly's found their way up into 5th place. They've had an amazing race so far, and they've just gone alongside de Havilland, found their way through up into 5th, and de Havilland is now looking to strike back. We've come into the final set of corners here, and de Havilland is not going to be able to get through now. They need to get a better exit here if they want to strike back at Daly. Otherwise, I fear they may lose their chance, and it doesn't look like they've got the exit they want, Jesse. So I'm not sure they're really going to be able to strike back at Daly here. So for Daly, this is the ideal situation for them right now. And, well, I must say, out of the drivers that have impressed me most today, I'd say Daly here has done a phenomenal job at showing us how to overtake and gain positions at Zolder of all places.
Yeah, he sure has. I happen to know Daly sort of personally, and I got to say, he was feeling it in pre-race today. He was as calm and as cool as a cucumber as I've ever seen him, and I was curious how he was feeling about a track like this, and turns out he was in the right frame of mind to come out here and lay one down today. Top 5 potentially for Daly if he can hold off to Havilland here, as it's just a remarkable climb through the field. Oh no, contact here! Henry and Neil Pimlott. We've seen these two close before, and Pimlott gets absolutely disposed of as if he was recycling, I believe. Let's see here. Oh, it's just a misjudgment. Expected Pimlott to turn in. Pimlott didn't turn in, and Henry absolutely turns him the opposite way. That is a frustrating end to race number 1 for Pimlott. Close stuff indeed.
We are coming into the final laps now. I believe we're going to have one more after this as Ertan is about to cross the line. Ertan, who is still currently in 1st place, but will that be for long, as we've got Kazmierski still in 2nd place behind him, and Verstappen is that 3rd car that you see. They have managed to close the gap to the leaders currently. If Verstappen can get through Kazmierski, they may be able to get through Ertan as well and take this race win home. That will be huge for Verstappen in this championship battle currently. But he only has 1 lap to do it, and we've said so many times that there is not a lot of opportunity here, and currently they are sitting 8 tenths behind the BMW ahead. I'm not sure if they are going to be able to do it, Jesse, but if I know Verstappen, it's that they will give it a jolly good go. So we're going to watch from the rear of Ertan here, and now from the front of Kazmierski as they look to try and find maybe a way through Ertan ahead. Ertan has done a phenomenal job, has led this race start to finish, made it look like a complete textbook race up ahead here. So Ertan is going to probably be happy with the result, whatever happens here, providing none of these cars collide right now. But I must say, Jesse, none of them are close enough to make a move currently, although they are so close to each other. But Kazmierski is edging closer. Verstappen now was almost an entire second behind, is now almost touching Kazmirski ahead as we come into the hairpin. They've only got 4 more corners left to make the move here. Will they be able to do it? They've taken an awful lot of curb there, which is not going to help the exit store, and you can see now they're going to fall behind, especially to the BMW and the absolute power it has in its acceleration. I think Verstappen might be hitting himself right now. They might have just lost their chance. I think Ertan is possibly about to cross the line to be the first race winner other than towards Idlo this season. Ertan in the 141 McLaren is showing us exactly what they can do. Comes home and brings the race win back with them. Kazmirski in second place in the BMW and Verstappen in third. Torzidlo is going to race over the line. Daly and de Havilland actually going to race each other over the line. Daly in fifth and de Havilland is in sixth. Vasiliev will secure seventh as Kingston Lee comes in just behind in eighth. Well, Jesse, that was a very, very close end to the race here, and it's not over for the lowest split yet. We've had about 4 different leaders, and right now it looks like Ricciardo is going to be the one to win the race in the lowest split, Jesse.
Yeah, it looks like that's going to be the case. Daniele Ricciardo has been patient this race, and it's going to pay off. I would have not called this win, but it will be an excellent win for the 931. Ricciardo wins in the lower class over Kraken Yaroshenko, your second and third place finishers respectively. Close racing all up and down as Wingham and Marshall come to the line. Looked close for a moment there. Results confirmed from race number 1 as many drivers still have the final couple of corners to go. And what a race it was. It will be one to forget for a lot of teams, and one where a lot of questions will certainly be asked. But as everybody comes across the line, this is the story for me. Jamie Ellis, your championship leader in the lower split, finishes well down the order, potentially outside the top 10. I reckon Ellis just about got points for race number 1, but I have no idea how many there were, and that is going to shake up the lower split points. That was an incredible race 1 for more reasons than one. Simson Riggs was humoring me in chat saying that the drivers are making it hard work for the commentators and the producer as well. I can guarantee you that was a hard 20 minutes of work. Felt like we were here for an hour, Tim Peck. So my question to you, was that the calm race or the busy race?
Well, we're about to find out, of course. Buckle up, everybody, because if you thought that was a long and confusing race, we have another 20-minute race now where the exact same thing could happen again. Of course, everyone will be returned to where they were in their qualifying positions, which means Ertan will still be starting on pole, but the likes of Kazmirski and Klazowski will be returned to second and third, so they'll have another shot at potentially fighting for the lead here on the first corner and just the first lap in general. So I'm just looking at how that first race has gone, and if that is the calm race, Jesse, we are in for a very, very hectic race. And usually we do follow the suit of the first race is calm, the second race is a lot more hectic as people just trying to make things right from what possibly went wrong in the first race here. I mean, if you're in that top 10 cars, you're going to be terrified right now. You have Torzidlo, who is going to start in 8th again. They're going to be looking to climb through the pack. Verstappen as well will be starting in 4th. They're going to be looking to climb up again. And they've got to go through all of the stuff they went through in race 1 all over again. Personally, I think this next race is going to be even more hectic as people are going to be trying to settle scores they lost. And one person who I think is absolutely going to be trying making something different happen is Klazowski. Of course, we watched them start in that podium position and nothing seemed to go right for them in that race. Klazowski just fell through the field and ended up finishing 10th in the end. So if there's someone here that is looking to fight back, I think Klazowski is going to be very, very eager to potentially go for the win here, Jesse.
Yeah, I think so. I think Klazowski will be asking what exactly happened that saw them get shuffled all the way down to where they were before the accident. Of course, it just added insult to injury, really, of what was a bad race. If you're Jordan Daly, if you're Ertan, if you're Ricciardo, you're saying, again, I want to do that again. And if you were a driver that had an issue in that race, you're saying the opposite. You're saying that better not happen to me again. I think you're going to see an interesting mix of drivers that are up on the wheel and some that are a bit more relaxed here. I have no idea, folks, if that was supposed to be the calm race or the energetic race. I have a feeling we're about to find out. And on top of that, just wanted to say hello and welcome to all of you that joined a bit late after race one. If you're wondering how race one went, well, everything happened in race one. We had a little bit of everything: crashes, thrills, spills, and drivers coming up through the field. And I reckon something else, Tim, if that would have been one more lap, I think Verstappen would have made a move, or maybe Kazimierski would have made a move, opening the door for Verstappen. Because for my money, the fastest car on the track was, let's be honest, probably towards Zidlow, but the fastest car with a chance was Verstappen.
Verstappen certainly did do a very good job. They closed a big old gap between them and Kazmierski ahead throughout the final parts of that race. But as we saw, maybe a little bit too much pressure, maybe just an innocent mistake, took too much grass on their hairpin, ended up absolutely ruining their acceleration onto the start-finish straight. And that is, I think, for me, what ultimately caused Verstappen not to make the move there. I think if Verstappen had got a good exit from that hairpin with 3 more corners left, I think we'd have seen him go for a dive, maybe even into the final corner. But of course, we will never know what would have happened there, as Verstappen didn't get the chance to. Of course, he's now sitting back in 5th, has to find a way through Borodai, Kozlowski and Kazmierski again if he wants to get a chance at the winning part of this race. But I tell you what, he made it look easy, and it's certainly very, very possible from the last race. I reckon we will see a lot more out of Verstappen this race. I think they might climb through just a little bit quicker this time. But that being said, one thing Christian mentioned to me just now is that the first 2 laps, Jesse, of last race were actually very, very clean. There wasn't a whole lot of contact there, and for the most part, that's where we thought the accidents were going to happen. And for the most part, nothing went wrong on those first 2 laps at all. Of course, it all just... well, it just sort of crashed after that. Everything went wrong. People were hitting each other left, right, and centre, and that is where people started to climb. So I'm wondering if this is the calmer race of the 2, and there's not quite so much contact between some of the drivers ahead. Is Verstappen going to be able to find a way through Borodai and Kozlowski ahead? Well, we'll just have to find out now as we're waiting for the cars to get going here. Christian's given us a nice, good look of the surroundings of Zolder and the sunny day that it still is. We had sun and optimum track through the last race. We're going to have sun and another optimum track through the second race here. So rain, luckily, will not be playing a part in where everyone is going to come. But I've got to say, Ertan there in that last race did a phenomenal job for me. Led from start to finish. I think out of everyone on the track, Jesse, Ertan is just going to be looking to do that exact race again in the exact same way. Nothing different.
And I don't want to undersell Daniel Ricciardo's win there. I want you to think about this in your brain space before we get going. To win that race, at minimum, Ricciardo had to pass 9 cars for position to even get there, despite starting 3rd in his class. He could do it again. It is a long road up there, and if you did it once, you can do it again, like my dad always says. Turns out my dad was wrong, however. I could only hit the ball once in that session, but there's one for you, Dad. But otherwise, Joe Gleason looking for an answer here. He was in our chat saying made one mistake in turn 1 and ended up last, but remained positive, saying that you've always got race 2 to make it up. I love that spirit from Joe Gleason, and if anybody can do it, I reckon he just about could. Keep in mind, he inherited the lead when Olsen got a drive-through penalty for being out of position on the start. The lower class was absolutely insane from the drop of the green flag, but we got halfway into that race and all hell broke loose. What will we get here? Will the desperation set in? Will they be more calm? Well, we'll find out here in about a lap or so's time. The car's out on the track for the second time. Tim Peck still going with Ertan for the win, or could towards Zidlow or Verstappen or anybody else get up there?
Oh, that is a very good question, Jesse. I was about to ask you the exact same thing, and I'm mad you got to it first because now I have the pressure of coming up with the answer. But I don't know. I'm not 100% sure if we're going to see the exact same pace out of Verstappen and towards Zidlow. Don't get me wrong, they're 2 very fast drivers, but in race 2, everyone in between is going to be hoping to keep that position. I think they might have a bit more trouble now fighting through the field, so this is going to weed out exactly who is the stronger one when it comes to overtaking. So we'll see whether both Verstappen or towards Zidlow could do it. As for Ertan, though, well, they've got to hope that lap 1 goes exactly the same as lap 1 did in the first race. As long as they can stay ahead of Kazmierski and Kozlowski, well, it's looking very, very good for them. Of course, Klazowski had a very good start in the last race, managed to get themselves up in second very quickly on the first corner, but that's when things started to go wrong. So I wouldn't discount any of them, Jesse. I'd say any of those three on that podium could end up in first place after the first lap, if not by the end of the race. So I'm very excited to see how that turns out now. Well, they're all coming through the final hairpin. They're about to come onto the start-finish straight. All of them are looking very, very menacing, and we are going back to lap 1, where anything can go wrong very quickly. Will these cars be able to make it through in one piece? Will there be even more chaos than there was in the first race? We're about to find out. We're coming through the final corners now. Jesse Lee, take us away.
Ataberk, Ertan, and Kazimierski, your lead group up front. Ertan had a fantastic start to race 1 as everybody behind him fought over second place. Klazowski needs to make up for a poor race number 1. Will Ertan leave Kazimierski again, or did Kazimierski learn something from that first race? Borodai Verstappen in the third row, de Havilland and Daly, who fought each other tooth and nail in the final row back there. Green flag is out, and Ertan gets a decent start, but for my money, Kazimierski got a better one. Kazimierski around the outside of turn 1 with a clear lead. Alexander Borodai gets spun with the 9 Audi in the background. Those two at the end, that's Rob Franken, I'm pretty sure. Those two drivers fill the field. It's a big pile up in turn 2. Cars smashing into each other. They might as well be a Pachinko machine in the middle pack. Many damaged cars, too many to count. And that is just how the cookie crumbles, and I reckon we've got our answer. This was going to be the messier race, the biggest pile-up we've seen thus far, and that is how it all shakes out. Many cars involved, and I just don't know. Yeah, I have no idea. I know Ricciardo was involved in it, and I know is Joe Gleason out in front of this field again? Or is Olsen in front of him?
Oh no!
That's a big slide. Could that be more? And it almost was.
Oh no!
For the car. James de Havilland off as well as it's all kicking off. That could have been bigger, folks, if that Porsche would have stayed on the off the racetrack. Or excuse me, on the racetrack. I'm all turned around. I have no idea what I just saw. I saw a bunch of cars drive off the track.
Jesse. Well, let's just watch what happens here first. There's two cars going very close to each other in the hairpin. I believe they just made contact. That was Olsen and Marshall just behind Phil Roberts there, making a little bit of contact, but for the most part, no, Marshall now hits someone into the wall off the side of the track there. That is not how Marshall's having a very hard end of the lap here, and there's even more people off the track. Lap 1 isn't over yet, and it is proving it, as I believe I counted 15 cars in the initial pile-up, and now even more behind. Jesse, if I get a chance to say this, I might not, because there's a lot of cars close to each other there, so I see them go through the first corner very tightly. But, Jesse, currently in the lead, we have Kazimierski, followed by Ertan, followed by Verstappen. Now, I do have a bit of gossip on what happened in the front there. Verstappen is the one who hit Borodai off the track at the beginning, causing that huge pile-up on turn 2 there. So, well, if Verstappen can do well and get to the front of this race, I think they might be looking at a penalty or two there, because that was a bit of an odd collision. But, of course, that is for the post-stewarding to decide. Remember, everybody, this race is post-stewarding. There's no penalties being handed out in the race, so all results will be switched up afterwards. But, well, I'm glad I'm a commentator and not a steward, Jesse. That is going to be a long, long list of reports, I reckon, in terms of exactly what went wrong there, and a lot of fingers pointing in different directions. But we have now got our answer. This was the more chaotic race, certainly the start at least. But, well, someone who's definitely going to be happy is Kazimierski, as they are now currently in the lead. Ertan behind has fallen back a little bit. There's a gap. It's only about 5 tenths, but that might be enough for Kazimierski to stay ahead currently. And, well, Ertan now is on the catch-up game. They've not had to drive very much against other people so far. This is now their chance, as we watch Ellis look for a move down the inside of the 666 McLaren ahead.
Very close racing between Jamie Ellis, who needs a good race here, finished near the back of his class after winning the championship. A slidey boy into 3 wide here. Phil Roberts looking on the inside, not willing to give up that ground. They get too wide, and now single file. Now Roberts the one under attack from behind from Watton. Watton trying to take the inside. I think they'll just about do it, and will they be followed through by Olsen? Olsen, who started on pole position for this race, is well back in his class. I was correct when I said earlier Joe Gleason I thought was the leader of the race. I couldn't place Olsen. That's because he was back here outside of the top 20. No drive-through for Olsen this time, but some calamity probably got stuffed up in that huge turn 2 log jam that got me all stopped up with my words. I couldn't speak. I've never seen anything quite like that, and it was an absolute mess, and I'm glad I'm not a steward on this occasion, because post-race stewarding is going to take a monumental effort. Joe Gleason leads again in the lower class over Lowe and the 666 McLaren. Those are your top 3 there, and Phil Roberts is the split between them. That is a lower class in front and a lower class behind. Phil Roberts just trying to get out of Dodge here.
And Roberts in a very dangerous position right now as Torzidlo looks to the inside of the cars ahead. Well, they've got a bit of a way to climb, but I must say, Jesse, starting 8th, Torzidlo is now currently in 5th. I believe they have just passed their teammate, Kozlowski, again, so they'll be currently up into 4th place. Torzidlo's had a very good start to the race. They've got 14 minutes left this time compared to the 5 minutes they had last time to try and get something here. And everyone is still bunched up. You've got Kazmierski in the lead. Verstappen's now in 2nd, but that's a 1 second gap between them. Ertan is then a second behind Verstappen in 3rd place. Torzidlo is only 6/10 of Ertan and looking very, very confident already as they go through the chicane, and Torzidlo is carrying a lot more speed there than the McLaren ahead of him is. They are looking for an overtake here, but they're going to have a chicane come up before they can fully complete it. Let's see if Torzidlo and Ertan can keep apart from each other. It looks like they have, but Verstappen was the car that you saw off the track there at the side. They've managed to slot themselves back in, but almost hitting someone on the way. We're going to see exactly what happened to them here. Did they just take a bit too much curb, Jesse? I think that's exactly what happened. They hit that curb a little too hard. They've lost the grip and they have gone off the track. Luckily for them, they're not going to pick up damage, but well, Verstappen was looking at 2nd place, maybe even 1st, and now he is not. He is down in 7th and will just be looking to try and climb through again, but he's got Daly ahead of him, and we have seen what Daly can do here at Zolder. It's not going to be an easy task. Ertan is now looking at the rear of Torzidlo, which means Torzidlo managed to get through Ertan and all that chaos. So Torzidlo, the person who came into this with a 40-point lead, is now in 2nd place, 3 seconds off Kazmierski ahead. Can Torzidlo catch up and extend the lead further? Well, they're no longer looking at a Grand Slam championship of every single race win, but he will certainly not let that slow him down. Torzidlo, the chase is now on. Can you catch that BMW?
Well, the answer is yes. If you're towards Zidlow, you absolutely can. Kazimierski will know that, and he'll be counting down the seconds. I think, other than Verstappen, towards Zidlow was probably the fastest car on the racetrack. The question for me is, can Kazimierski do something to keep towards Zidlow behind? If it was going to be any track that you had to defend on, you reckon you would prefer to do it here because the options are slim. What a moment for Verstappen. Just got way too much curb. The GT4 didn't like that. Hopped him in the air and spun him around under power. And it was just trying to maximize the corner. Spun around, and it's a long way back up towards the front of this field. Phil Roberts still finds himself in this position, trying to get around the 666 McLaren to get closer to the drivers in his field that he's racing. A mistake there by the 666. Could this be converted into a position? I think it just will. What a cheeky little look by Phil Roberts. Knew the 666 was going to have to pendulum around, and Phil Roberts just gets out. Who is that? That's an Alpine. That was an Alpine. Who was that? The 42. That's Tom Bryant.
Oh, that
wasn't an Alpine. That was a Ginetta. That was the 42 Ginetta of Tom Bryant that went around there.
Oh, Tom, that is not the situation he wants to be in there. I'm not sure why he's facing that way, but he was as Ellis and the 666 McLaren make contact behind Roberts. That looked very dangerous for a second, but both have managed to continue it through the corner there. Roberts looked very unstable going through the chicane, but somehow managed to make it work as we watch the fight behind unfold. This is Ellis currently fighting Olsen. This is for position for both of them, and I believe this is a fight for that final podium place between the two of them. Currently, Ellis has the advantage. They are on the inside of Olsen right now. No, they are not. That is completely wrong from me. This is Ellis fighting off the 666, I believe. I think Olsen might have already come through. It looks like there's going to be contact there. But this is all unfolding and going wrong again for this lower split. They can't seem to organise themselves. And, well, I don't want to jinx anyone again. But, Jesse, this is exactly what we saw last race.
Background! Big crash!
I missed that. Oh, no, I missed that in the background. By the sounds of something big, and there is a car stopped on track. You can see it.
That was the 666. That was the 666, and a couple of cars collected into the inside wall. And Ivan now has had a this is going to be. Ivan just turned into a spot where there wasn't room for a car, and huge calamity. A couple of cars getting to the wall. Ivan got the worst of that. I don't know where the 666 thought they were going.
Well, I can't tell you, Jesse. That looked very, very messy to me. It looked like one car was trying to get into a spot, the other car was just trying to stay out of their way, but had absolutely nowhere to go. And I think that will be something they have a little bit of words about maybe after the race, of course. Again, post-stewarding, definitely not going to have a fun time with the results of race 2 here. But Borodai, who I mentioned, got knocked off on the very, very first corner on the first lap, is now fighting their way back through the field. They were originally in dead last, but have managed to fight their way through the lower split. And some of the higher split drivers as well. They're currently in 18th and climbing. Borodai just trying to pick up as many points as they can now, but has a long, long way ahead of them and only 9 minutes left to do so. And, well, Jesse, I'm looking at the gap between Kazmirski and towards Idlo, and it's closing, but it's not closing as quickly as I thought. In fact, it just got quite big there. I'm wondering if Idlo had a little bit of a mishap on one of the corners there, maybe lost a bit of grip. And towards Idlo, originally looking like someone who was going to absolutely dominate these races, this has not been his week here, Jesse.
No, and if it was ever going to be a week where it wasn't going to be the case, I thought it would be this. By the way, towards Zidlo didn't have a moment, so to speak, but they did have to get around the 42 of Tom Bryant, who is a lap down now. So that would have slowed you down. Even if Tom got out of the way, that still slows you down because of the nature of the racetrack. So I have a feeling that's exactly what happened to towards Zidlo, having to pass a lapped car there. But also something else I just noticed, Olsen has got all the way back up to third. I have no idea how Olsen did that so quickly. They were in no man's land after that lap 1, turn 2 incident, but somehow have got all the way back on the podium. Lowe is second, and Joe Gleason is way out in front. Contact there. Borodai getting a little bit forceful with Olsen, exactly, nearly getting forced off the track. Olsen not taking that and saying, hey, I'm going to run you out of room because you don't have a line here to take this position, Sunshine. And in my opinion, Olsen has the right to do that. And the corner conceded by Borodai will continue to try and get this done. He might get it done right here. Pulls up, goes to the outside. Does he have the overlap? Is he going to try the in and out? He is. He is going to but it's massive contact, and Borodai turns Ellis. That was your lower split championship leader, who is just having a disastrous day, and Borodai adding to that.
Oh, that doesn't sit right with me, Jesse. That was a very dangerous move from Borodai then. I don't think it was the right call in the slightest.
I thought it was going to come off though, Tim, right up until the end where it didn't. I thought he was going to get it done.
He had the exit from the first corner, but as soon as he tucks to the inside, I'm just thinking, where are you going? There's no room there. I mean, Olsen was hugging that curve very tightly, and Borodai just turned to go for the inside. That just wasn't there, and of course he went off track, hit Olsen in the head. I think that is a very big shame for Olsen there, and I agree with you. Olsen absolutely doesn't have to yield. Just because they're in different splits does not mean one gets priority over the other. Both splits can race for position, and I think that is going to be a bit of a sour moment for Olsen, a very sad end to the week. Olsen's just had it all this week. It's not been the week, and having led this championship, this is not how they'd have wanted it to go. Someone who is having a very good race, though, is this person right here, Gleason now looking to find their way through Vasiliev ahead and extend their lead on Lowe, who is in second place in their class behind. There's currently a 3-car gap between the lower split now. The 135 Porsche Gleason is ahead of Lowe in the 97 Mercedes. And I've got to say, Gleason, I jinxed them in the first race. I'm hoping I don't jinx them in this race because they are looking comfortable here at Zolder now. They're doing everything right this time round as Hull looks for a move around the outside of Borodai. Isn't going to be able to find it and actually goes way too wide off the track there, which is going to ruin their chances of a comeback on the next corner. But, well, many people have tried to go around the outside of that corner yesterday, and my only question is do you think anyone's actually going to make it happen, or is that more just a showcase of, look, we're going to race each other around this corner when really the person on the inside will always come out on top?
I'm going to be honest with you. I have seen DTM and Formula One cars make that work, but it's not an advised move. And I can tell you from personal experience, there's no grip out there, just a gigantic beach. It's okay if you want to make sandcastles, but probably shouldn't do it in the middle of a race. Raphael Huell finding it a bit difficult there, getting passed up by, actually no, not getting passed up, what I'm saying. Actually, no, it did in fact getting passed up by Olsen. I totally meant that the very first time. You know, I was watching the race. Yeah, I was watching the race up front, and I did notice that Kazimierski was indeed pulling away a little bit from towards Zidlow, and that is absolutely incredible. That means that I slept on Kazimierski simply because he was stuck behind the lead driver in race one, and that's incredible. Ertan might have been holding him up ever so slightly in that first race, but like I said, it's so hard to pass around here. Might have not had the grunt, but just as I say that, towards Zillow takes out nearly 3.5 tenths in that sector alone. So we will keep you updated with that. We'll keep you updated with this. Portugal's on Miguel Martins in the DCC Motorsport Audi, trying to keep Jackson behind him for 9th place. And I don't know if something happened to Joe Gleason or not, but I did know that Gleason was running in the 9th place position and is now back to 12. That could just be matriculation from the likes of Martin, Jackson, Vasiliev, all having a little bit more pace and getting around, or that could have been a moment for Joe Gleason. Either way, nothing reported. The car still going well for the 135. Flashing back up to the front. This could also be the reason towards Zidlow is not making a lot of progress. He's still got Ataberk Ertan on his tail.
I was going to say, we talked about Kazimierski being stuck behind Ertan. Ertan certainly made that look like it wasn't the case as Ertan continues to put pressure on towards Zidlow from behind. The gap to Kazimierski ahead is 3.4 seconds for towards Zidlow, but the gap to Ertan is only 7 tenths. Jesse. So the 141 McLaren this week has been showing exactly what they can do. Klazowski behind, having a much better race. They are in 4th, and Verstappen just behind them, of course, recovered from what happened earlier as we saw them go off the track, has managed to find their way back up into 5th. So they're fairly close. They're not all in racing distance, but they are fairly close there, Jesse. But, well, if we're talking about racing distance, this is the group you want to be looking at. Borodai continues his pursuit to try and climb back up through the ranks. He's got Franken to find their way through now, but they've got to do it cleanly if they want to not make more penalties, I should say, as Borodai is now looking to find their way through Franken. You can see them now, they're hanging back. They are still looking for the inside though here, Jesse, and this time I think they'll be prioritising their exit on this corner just to get a good run up into the straight, but Franken in the Audi is holding strong and is going to have enough distance on them. Of course, they've got Ellis ahead of them, who is currently in 3rd place in his class. He's not in this fight, but he's certainly not going to want to get too caught up in it, Jesse. And here's what I'm wondering about the two different splits right now is, having watched all of this chaos unfold, you don't have to yield a position, but would you for the... Borodai's gone for a move down the inside of Franken here into the chicane, not going to make it stick and is going to get forced back out, but for a second there I thought Borodai was going to go for an absolute send down the inside. This has of course given Olsen, of all people, a chance to catch up, and Olsen will be looking for some repercussions from earlier, is looking for their way back through. Borodai's going for a move down the inside. I think Borodai's just going to let it happen to say sorry. Olsen has found their way up into 20th and is now turning their attention to the podium in their split ahead of them. Back to what I was going to ask you though, Jesse Lee. If you're in a different split to the drivers around you and they are fighting as close as they have been, do you maybe just yield the position, as long as it's safe to do so in your split, simply to stay out of trouble?
It depends if I have something to gain here. Bordai has something to gain here, and so does Olsen out of this. Oh no, and
Ooh.
contact again. Is that going to send Olsen? It doesn't send him off the track, but near as much as the car stays the right way up. But Bordai has contact again with Olsen, as there is going to be a long conversation between, actually, it might be a very short conversation now that I think about it, between the two of them after this race. You know, it's funny. My commentary partner Ryan Mawson in chat saying that if this was a British track, we could break into some Murray Walker commentary. Don't tempt me, Ryan Mawson. I do love my Murray Walker. I think one of my favorite Murray Walker quotes is the one where he's explaining the naughty flag, where it's, we see what you're doing, we know what you're doing, and if you carry on doing what you're doing, we're not going to let you do what you're doing.
Oh, Olsen has just got a drive through. That will be for cutting the track one too many times. I believe you get 3 warnings, and then on your 4th track cut, you will be handed a drive through penalty from the game there, of course. No live shooting, so this will be a penalty from the game, which means it's most likely, I can't think of another reason for it, that will be track limits. And that's one thing that I was meant to touch on earlier with you, Jesse, and I haven't yet. We might have to hold off a little bit. Ellis looked towards the inside, but then decided against it at the last second there, but certainly has not given up the pursuit of Kingston Lee ahead. Kingston Lee, of course, is trying to put pressure on Low at the moment, so we will see how that all turns out for them. But one thing that I haven't talked about with you yet, Jesse, is the track limits on this track. I'm surprised we've not seen more drive-throughs, because as we saw in the very first lap of the first race, if you just take a little bit too much of the chicane that Kazmierski has just gone through here, you get a track cut very, very easily. So for the most part, everyone's done a really, really good job at not getting track limits. I've also just realised this is the last lap. We are watching Kazmierski do the last lap here. They are 2.7 seconds ahead of Towards Zidlow. They have got a nice big gap. They just have to drive across the line safely without spinning out, and with not a single car in sight.
Why would you say that?
Kazmierski is going to do it. I hope I haven't jinxed them. I will admit it would be funny if I have, but I can't jinx Kazmierski, because Kazmierski is showing us what that BMW can do. They're going to cross the line in first place. That is the first race win this season for Kazmierski, and a jolly good job for him too. Towards Zidlow will come in second place, and Ertan had a brilliant week here, will come in and round up that podium. Klazowski had a much better second race, and Verstappen has found their way back up into 5th. Jordan Daly will hold 6th, so a great race from those 6 drivers. We're now watching people come across the line. Gleeson has secured first place for the lowest bit. An amazing job for him, especially after what happened in the first race. Again, I apologise for jinxing you, Gleeson. I will take the fall for that one. And now we are looking at Lowe versus Ellis versus Kingston Lee. Could this be a drag race to the finish line? Not quite between the 2 drivers that are fighting for position, but it was between Kingston Lee and Lowe. But Lowe will have the advantage, and Kingston Lee will come down in 17th place. Lowe will be second in his split, and Ellis will round out the podium for that lower split. A brilliant drive from all of these drivers so far. We've got a couple more left to come across the line, but it doesn't look like there's going to be too much more racing. And I tell you what, Jesse Lee, that second race, I think, was the more chaotic start, maybe a slightly less chaotic end, but both of these races have been very, very chaotic throughout. I think we've broken our 1 race chaos, 1 race calm rule. This was the double race chaos that we have been so fearful of for a couple of seasons now.
It's a very good point, Tim, and I think you're absolutely right. This race was pretty chaotic from the start. It kind of calmed down. The other one, the first race, was the exact reverse of that. And for Artur Kazmierski, absolutely deserved win for this Carbon Sim Sport driver. Just held their own, made up for the start in race 1, which wasn't a bad start from the 15 BMW. Just learned a little bit from that, was able to get around Ertan and just never looked back. And sometimes that's all you have to do. That's all Kazmierski had to do. Kept Towards Zidlow on a fairly long leash behind him, and that was pretty much perfect. Towards Zidlow did exactly what Torzidlo needed to do, and that's maintain the championship gap. I think he's just about done that with Verstappen finishing 5th in race 2. Ertan, a brilliant double podium here today as well. Joe Gleason absolutely deposed and disposed of in race 1. Gleason comes back. He said in our chat that got a race to go, can still do this, does exactly that. Olsen, my heart goes out to him. 2 drive-throughs takes him out of it. Olsen had a chance at a podium here, but also Ellis, the who came in the championship leader, gets a podium here in race number 2 after a rough race number 1. What does that mean for the championship points? Well, you're going to have to tune in next week and find out.
You will have to join us next week if you want to find out exactly how that race turned out. Of course, we are now going to hand this over to the stewards. They can deal with all of the penalties as they so wish. That will affect the order of people finishing and how many points they get. Of course, for every penalty point you get, you will lose a position to the car behind you. So that will mix up the order a little bit. But for the most part, I think most drivers will probably be getting some sort of penalty for just chaos that maybe wasn't necessarily avoidable for some of them there. So I imagine we will find out exactly how that turned out next week. For now, though, well, I've got to say, Jesse, that was 2 absolutely hectic races. 2 hectic races we could not have done without our partners here. Our partners, you would be able to see at the bottom of the screen, but of course we don't have them because they're in a completely different reel right now. But they are racedepartment.com. They are your source of sim racing news and mods. AK Informatica, they provide our server solutions for us. Driver61.com. You can get 25% off your driver coaching by using your discount code. Our discount code, not your discount code, but it could be yours if you use the link in the description below. Just go to driver61.com and redeem that code, and you can get a nice discount off your driver coaching there. It helps you to become a much better driver. We've had plenty of people here at RCI and getting involved in our races use it, and you can absolutely see the difference that it makes. Fanatec, they're your one-stop shop for the best sim racing equipment. Another affiliate code will be in the description, and it won't cost you anything. It helps us with things like server costs. Simracing.gp, well, we said this last week about the Monza public lobbies. We could say it again about Zolder public lobbies. If you are tired of public lobbies, which you might be after watching some of these GT4 races recently, you can join simracing.gp for quality community-based sim racing today. It's absolutely free, and it means that you can get into organised races where there is significantly less chaos than you might have in a public lobby. So that wraps up the partners for today, Jesse. And, well, let's just double back onto the race for a minute. What a hectic 2 races, and a big congratulations to Ertan, and I've forgotten what the other driver's name is. I'm going to call him Kazmierski. It is Kazmierski. A big well done to Ertan and Kazmierski. It's their first 2 wins, and Torzidlo's first time this season not winning. I've got to say, unexpected, I'm guessing it was for you. What do you think we'll see going forward next week?
Well, it's a hard to say really because we're going to Snetterton for round 4. There's not 6 rounds in this championship, only 5. Something I just learned just now. Normally championships have 6, but this one having 5, and of course 2 races to be had in 1 week's time. Snetterton is such a flat-out racetrack on part of it. It's all about the grip and momentum of the car, and then of course you have the middle sector that is very tight confines as well. It's hard to say. I've only ever seen 1 GT4 race there, and I think it's an unpopular choice. All of that culminates into drivers coming in that are a bit hot, agitated, and a lot of drivers that are fighting for positions in championship ranking. Whatever happens, it's going to be very interesting to watch. I think we're going to see a lot of passing in that race, especially down into the chicane. Uh, I expect Zidlow to come back onto form for those races, but we'll have to see. Got a couple of new challengers. Anybody can still win the championship in both categories. It's going to be fun to watch.
It certainly is. Last time we went to Snetterton, we both said, not our favourite track, and then we're treated to the race of our lives. So it is all to play for next week. And don't you go anywhere if you want to find out how this championship is going to turn out. We will be back at the exact same time next week for more GT4 racing. But before then, if you've enjoyed the racing here at RCI, you can catch some of our other races. Tomorrow we have the Friday GT3 Championship. That is commentated by Mike Jones and Jesse Lee again, who we've had here today. He will be back several times throughout the week. Do you actually know him? I'd never have guessed, Jesse.
Yeah, I do.
Well, Jesse will be back with you tomorrow. He'll be with Mike Jones. And then again on Saturday, we'll have the night out in the evening. I believe, again, that is Jesse Lee and Mike Jones. But before that, we will be having the World Tour. That is the first race of the World Tour. We're going to the Nürburgring, and you'll be joined with a nice array of different commentators throughout the entire race. That is, I believe, 10 hours of Nürburgring that we will be doing there. So don't miss that race. Tune in at any point in time and see how everyone's getting on. Moving on to Monday, you'll be back with Ryan and Ryan. That will be the Ryan duo. They will be doing the Monday Euromasters Championship as that comes into the fifth race. That's all coming down now. The penultimate race. Who's going to run away with it? Well, you'll have to tune on Monday to find out. And then the Wednesday Diamond Drive Cup. That is again hosted by Jesse. And Nate will be joining him in the commentator booth then. Jesse, I don't know how you commentate this much. Your throat must be sore from the amount of yelling, especially if it's anything like what we've just witnessed here today. And I've got to say, Snetterton coming up next week. I personally can't wait to see what happens. So just before we head off, any final thoughts, Jesse?
I just want to thank everybody for joining us here this week. Of course, your comments in chat always appreciated. We love seeing what you're thinking at any given time. We love seeing the supporters and everybody as well as the drivers. And Miguel Martins, of course, he came home in 9th place today. He's a supporter of ours and everything as well. And you got Jordan Daly who did well, and all these folks that come into chat and give their support. Redford, of course, is usually here. And just want to thank you guys, all of you, even if we didn't name you by name, for being here, being a part of the broadcast. It's if we don't, even though we don't always mention it, we love to absolutely see it. We can't wait to see you next week.
We can't wait at all. And again, like Jesse just said, a big thank you to all of you that joined in the chat today. Miguel, I will admit you deserve a rest after that race. You go pass out like you want to, hopefully in a safe way though. But anyway, we will see you next week. We will be back with Snetterton. Don't go anywhere until then. Remember to, if you don't want to miss out on any races, you can like, subscribe, and hit the little bell notification, and that will tell you every time we come back live. So make sure you hit those if you want to catch the next few races in this championship. And, well, thank you very much for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you all next week. Goodbye.